Okay, driving the Huyara. This is crazy. The driving position is just unlike basically anything that I've driven before. You've got all these gauges and everything is so beautiful and so totally alien, but then you have this window above you that's just totally insane. Very few cars have this. The car feels surprisingly mechanical. Primarily it's the transmission that feels mechanical. You can feel it downshift as we go down and slow down into first gear for a stoplight. Sitting at that stoplight, it does, I mean, you hear more than you would in like a R8 or something like that. It's definitely more of a serious car. And as you accelerate, you really hear behind you everything. This is no Bentley. This is a true exotic sports car, a hypercar, and you never forget it when you're in this car. It doesn't matter where you look, you never forget you're not in a regular car. Listen to that! That's amazing. You can hear the turbos so distinctly. Obviously the steering is really good. It's very precise. I assume you'd have to really get it on a track and really feel it in order to know what it's capable of, but I definitely feel that the steering is very precise and the turn-in is very good. Wow, oh my God. Oh my God. Wow, that's crazy. You can definitely tell it's that AMG V12, that twin turbo V12. It has a similar feel that the SL65. Oh my God, that feels every bit Chiron fast, 812 super fast. The Chiron is incredibly fast, but I just keep thinking that it was so luxurious while it delivered the power. There's a benefit to that. But this car, with the gears kind of slamming into the next gear with all that noise behind you, this car really feels like you are actually just flying. Man, the sensation of speed in this car is closer to the very best of any car I've ever driven. You feel it, you hear it, you can see it coming. You're close to the road, so it's right there in front of you. It's hard to describe that level of speed. It just comes on so incredibly fast. It is interrupted only by the shifts. But the thing about the shifts is they're not as quick as a dual clutch, but they are incredibly like smashing. They smash you back in your seat, and so the shift kind of takes a break, but then it pushes you back almost even more than the acceleration. Everything. You don't need a roller coaster if you have one of these. That is just about the angriest sounding and feeling car that I've ever been in. It's not just about, it is. And so that's the Pagani Huyara. The Pagani freaking Huyara. This car is so amazing and so special and so beautiful and so insane to drive and so full of so many cool quirks and features. And here we are. You're really not scared?
Nah.
I am. So you look around the interior, I mean, this is a really cool place to spend time. And yes, there are some similarities to other McLaren interiors, but there's also some pretty substantial differences. There's buttons that other ones don't have. Whew, rough ride. But that's kind of the point. But yeah, you can feel every lane bump. God. That was half throttle.
Oh yeah, I know, you're just warming up the tires.
The steering precision is really impressive, even just going around those little corners, which is interesting because this is not a brand new car. You know, I normally associate the most precise steering with like the newest stuff on the market, but this was obviously really well developed, you know, when it came out.
Holy cow. Sir, can I see your insurance?
Oh my God.
You know, I thought you were gonna take it easy. I'm just kidding.
Wow, that is some serious. You know what's insane? I totally agree with you versus 918. 918 is awesome and it does feel that fast, but this, the sound, the
so
visceral,
more agile.
yeah,
so much more agile.
And you feel like you're in a crazier thing here. Like it feels like a more insane, even compared to La Ferrari, this is definitely more raw. I agree with you, by the way. Senna does feel heavier. There's no doubt. This car feels like it accelerates quicker, which is... Oh my God.
Jesus, you know he's red, right?
Yeah, but I figure we got good brakes, you know? And indeed, look at that. boom.
crazy.
What?
Well, it always feels scarier when you're in a passenger seat.
How often do you ride in the passenger seat? Do you
not often.
Yeah, I've had. Now, the funny thing is when you sit at a stoplight, it actually is fairly tame. You hear a little bit of the motor, but it's not like an old 80s, like the F40, where it's like, you know, there's a lot happening.
Like
right.
even Senna. The Senna is vibrating so much, your windows are shaking.
Feels like a race car.
You can't carry out the conversation, but this is, this is one that really is like one of those sleeper cars.
Totally. It is reasonably civilized. It feels very stable. It feels Now, it is bumpy, though.
If you think this is quiet, wait until you put it on the
yeah. Oh. Is it still fast?
It goes. I think
it goes
100 miles an hour.
It's not. It's nowhere near as fast. It feels like a normal car.
Yeah, because you're only going on 200 horsepower electric engine.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the ride is harsh. Every bump you feel pretty significantly. It's a very stable car, but you definitely are getting pushed around.
Absolutely.
You never forget that you're in a supercar in this thing. Woo! Oh my God. Wow. Oh my God. The speed that it gets up to so insanely fast. You just said it's like a Ducati. That's such a great analogy.
Right.
This car sounds more like a sport bike, super bike than anything that I've ever driven before. It is so fast to change speeds and change directions and everything like that. That is incredible. Amazing. And so that's the McLaren P1. This really is the ultimate modern McLaren and one of the greatest supercars ever made in terms of price, performance, styling, driving experience, and rarity, as there are 2.5 times more 918 Spiders than P1s. This really is a tremendously special car, and I'm thrilled that I finally had the chance to review it. All right, driving the La Ferrari. You ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
The first thing I'm struck by just getting in, driving it a little bit, is how stable it instantly feels. I mean, even just going around these little, it's just so precise, just as good as the best of anything in the world. Yeah, there's just a ton of power. I mean, that's a quarter throttle, and it just feels like there's endless torque, endless power.
I can say that I've driven this car 200 miles per hour, and even at 200, you know, because a lot of cars, they start topping out and they're slow. Even at 200 miles per hour, the cars feel so steady, like you're not like afraid that's going to hydroplane or whatever. And also, it has so much more power to go. Like you could feel more power to go.
Yeah, it's clearly got a ton of power. Wow.
So you hear that little tick, tick, tick.
Yeah, what was that?
That's like when if it's a sound or the computer trying to tell you that, oh, you know, it's getting a little bit crazy. So you gotta,
Interesting. So it's like a nanny. It's like saying, "Hey, dude." So it's not actively doing anything. It's simply warning you, you may be going a little bit.
Right.
What a weird thing.
So, like when you're turning and you're about, like, if you're going too aggressive, you might lose it. It will start to.
Do you pay attention to that? Like if it turns on, are you like, okay?
I mean, it does, I do. It's like a little nanny.
It's like a babysitter. It's like a minder telling you.
Yeah.
Do you, when you drove it on the track, so when you drive it on the street now, are you just like, how far below its capabilities we are?
Yeah, for sure. It's just like walking right now,
Right, that's exactly it. And it's the precision, it's so incredibly capable. The one thing I'm struck by is the fact that it feels drivable and usable more than I was expecting. I thought there would be a lot of compromise. I thought it would be so low that we wouldn't be able to, parking, getting in and out of places would be a problem, and driving on the street visibility would be a problem. Actually, these ridiculous mirrors do a pretty good job of doing.
They do a really good job.
It comes on fairly frequently. It's so good, though. It's just so good. Everything has just been engineered so well. Each car has kind of built off the prior one to the point where now everything is just fantastic. And so that's the La Ferrari. This is quite simply the ultimate Ferrari. It is incredibly rare. It looks ridiculous. Values are insane. Performance numbers are absolutely out of this world. It really is the ultimate Ferrari and one of the ultimate cars on the road today. We're driving the Koenigsegg. This is about the most expensive thing that I've ever been inside, let alone operated. This is just about the craziest experience anyone will ever have. A lot of exotic cars, you drive them like R8, Huracan, you sit in them, it's like, oh, it's not that crazy, I could live with this. This thing, everything is just nuts. The curve of the windshield is crazy. You're clearly not in any normal type of vehicle. And the interior is so insane. Everything about it is just different from what you get in a regular car. The shifts are surprisingly quick. That little downshift there is surprisingly fast. It doesn't quite feel as labored and as slow as the Pagani did. The shifts definitely feel a little bit quicker and more precise than that. It is amazing to me how much sound you hear in here. This is like an old school exotic car where you're really part of the experience. You can really hear it, which I wasn't really expecting and which I kind of like actually. It really does not ever let you forget that this is something really, really special and different. Yeah, you can feel that it does have, obviously it has a ton of power. Wow. Man, the sound it makes is absolutely incredible. It is commensurate with how much power is being delivered, and it really feels amazing. It really feels like you are getting a lot of power out of it. It doesn't feel quiet, like the Bugatti feels so quiet and luxurious and Bentley-like. This is the exact opposite of that. I love the power delivery and the way that the sound feels. It just feels like an angry, mean kind of exotic car. Steering is obviously really sharp, very nicely weighted, absolutely no vagueness, feels very precise. I'm only doing little movements, but the car clearly doesn't body roll at all. It's almost incredible how immediately on a line it is the moment you start to turn the steering wheel. Reminds me of like Huracan Performante, some of the cars that I feel are the very best in that regard. Wow. It's amazing how much sound you could unleash in this car. I can't believe that it feels like this. I always kind of figured Koenigsegg they were kind of neutered and they were Swedish and it would be simple and stable and it does feel like that, but it also just feels like an angry, mad, exotic car that really wants you to go fast. And the steering feel is incredible. The car just feels so planted and flat. More than just about any car I've driven. The owner told me before I went and drove it that it feels like a go-kart, like a bigger go-kart. And I was thinking, well, it's like a multi-million-dollar car. It's got to be more refined and stuff than that. It is very refined, but also it just feels like you can throw it around and floor it and it gets mad and angry and it does feel very tight. It really does feel like a go-kart. The shifting is great. You know, Koenigsegg makes all this stuff proprietary. You'd think it would kind of feel crappy, but it doesn't. The shifting feel is fantastic. And looking out in this cockpit, it's a narrow windshield in front of you, and then it just kind of, it's like an airplane or something. I mean, it's incredible. Whew. The power is incredible, and the feeling of the power is absolutely incredible. The car just feels like it could go and go and go forever. Going over the lane line bumps, the chassis is very stiff, obviously. This is a sports car, an exotic car through and through. At lower speeds, the car feels very clearly like it wants to go. With that said, it doesn't feel as jerky at low speeds as some of the exotic cars that I've driven, especially older ones. It feels like you could drive it at low speeds, but it also feels like you're leaving a lot on the table. And so that's the Koenigsegg Agera RS1. I don't like using the term hypercar or megacar because I think it's kind of a made-up classification where supercar was really all we needed. But if any car was to be considered a hypercar or a megacar, it would be this one. This is the most ridiculously insane, absolutely crazy car that you can buy today, and it's also the most expensive car I've ever driven. All right, driving the new GT. This is Carl, the owner of the car. Are you scared? No, not at all. I haven't crashed anything yet. Doug's driving my car. First impression, just getting in and everything, I mean, it's such an event. The doors, it's so narrow in here. You know, the car doesn't look narrow, but the cabin is very narrow because of the arrow on the side. You know, you get into a McLaren, they're all about the same. Ferraris are all about the same. This is like no other exotic car because Ford doesn't make any. So everything is kind of like bespoke and weird, and the steering wheel is weird, and the paddles are weird, and It's a different experience.
Everything from the outside to the inside of the car is unconventional. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the reasons that it's so desirable and people like it, because they do feel like there's nothing else on the road like it.
Last time we were together driving this car in Utah 2 years ago, I never felt the V6 was a drawback. How have you put 700 miles on this car already, how have you felt about it?
It's something that you have to think about, because if you just drive the car, it's fast and, and it makes a neat noise. So unless you get caught up in thinking about the fact that it doesn't have a V8, you'll never care that it doesn't have a V8.
I remember at the time 2 years ago, you told me that it's down to a theory at that point. It's a matter of theory.
Right.
Should a car like this have a whatever V12, V8?
Right. And of course, I always feel like, well, there's a whole lot of cars out there with a certain crest on it that have 6 cylinders in them that nobody questions at all, right?
It honestly feels like a V8 in the sense of the immediacy of the power. Because one of the things I love about V8s is just how responsive they are to the throttle.
Yeah.
And this feels like, there are a couple of good V6s on the market right now that feel like that.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. Yeah, the signals on the thing are weird. So if you just tap it, it only goes 3 times?
Right. Although,
but what if you hold it down or something? It goes longer.
See, now sometimes if you tap it, it goes 3 times. I've kind of got it down. There's a certain level of tap that gets you three signals, and another level of tap that just keeps it going. And that
you just have to kind of know. Man, listen to that sound. That's one of the things that I really realized, because even I was skeptical about the 6-cylinder when I heard about it, etc. But the thing that I saw in Utah when I saw him on the track going fast was that it actually sounds great. It doesn't matter. And that was the thing. And I've so many people have told me over the last year or two, oh, that GT, it's only got a 6-cylinder. And I keep telling people, no, it's amazing. It sounds great. It feels great. It doesn't feel like a 6-cylinder.
Well, and there are people out there who are like, it doesn't sound good either, or it sounds like a 6, and it's like, no, you're just deciding.
Yeah, because you know
it's got
a 6, right?
So you've decided you don't like the exhaust note. Again, if you didn't tell people what the engine was, and you just made them drive it, they'd think it was a really powerful V8.
Oh, it's just so quick. I mean, that's a quarter stab, give or take, of the throttle. Oh. I love the sound. I just think it's fantastic, and it almost feels amplified. You can just hear so much sound in here.
What I like about it is how everything is immediate in the car. The wing doesn't kind of go up and down. It slams up and down. The car.
Yeah, it really does. It just did.
Oh man. And when you go over a bot dot, I call it the rifle crack. You go over a bot dot, and the whole inside of the cabin goes BAM! Because you went over something this
you don't even feel it in an SUV.
And there's no give. There's no give because there is no flex in the body or the suspension.
Wow. Oh my God. It's just insanely fast. That noise, it's just right behind you, and there's no insulation or anything. It does feel more race car than almost anything. I just drove the Senna. That has a similar feel, because that is also an insane, ridiculous, track focus, storage.
To me, the Senna is extremely cool. It's got a lot of the same characteristics of this car, a lot of philosophy behind it that's very similar to what the philosophy was behind this car.
Right.
But it's almost twice as much by the time you equip it properly.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's just so fast. And it just feels so stable and so good when you're going fast. It just felt so capable, like we were only at a quarter of what it could do, which of course was true. Wow. Man, it's just so good. It just feels so stable and so planted. That's the really impressive thing. It feels like a German or Italian supercar, that company that has been doing this for 100 years, that, is good at that.
I've talked to the guys that were part of the tuning, the fine tuning. How's the steering feel going to be? What's the throttle going to do? What's going to be like when you start to use the throttle to steer it versus the brakes? And those guys did an amazing job on this car. That's the bottom line. It's really best past its limit.
Yeah.
Now, there are cars that you can drive up to their limit and they're awesome. And what happens past their limit is frightening.
They get scary.
You don't want to do that. But when you push this car past its limit, it is really fun. It's really a fun car, and that's when you know they got it right.
God, it's just incredibly fast. It's also incredibly good slowing down, which I'm not doing I'm not flooring the brake like I am the accelerator, but it's good at it. Clearly you could tell. Yeah, it's really, really tight. Obviously there's virtually no body roll. I'm not even in track mode. Track mode kind of scares me because it just gets so low. But but it's just so good. It's so stable. The steering is also very precise, which I love. I hate cars with light steering. I hate cars with light turn-in, especially.
Yes.
And this isn't that. The moment you start to turn it,
something happens.
the car starts to do its thing. And so that's the new Ford GT. This is a bona fide supercar, one of the best on sale today, one of the craziest, fastest cars on the market, period. It's hard to imagine paying $500,000 for a Ford, but it's also hard to imagine that Ford makes a car that'll do almost 220 miles an hour. And yet they do. And